A long time ago, if humans wanted to move anything, they had to carry it. As time went on, they were able to solve these problems and millions of others. If you think about it, though, clearly you can notice one of the earliest major invention for mankind was wheel. Okay, so so also I really don't know whether to classify wheel as a discovery or invention. So I'll leave you guys with this meme. You guys can figure it out for yourselves depending on your definitions of inventions and discovery. All right. And also, if someone asks you to explain this meme after the session, because all right, so please do explain them. Come on, people, you need to help your fellow boomers too, right? All right. So with time, we solved the issue of transportation. Invention of wheel was classified as a design problem. Like it still can be classified as a design problem. And in my opinion, one of the most creative or thought-provoking designs of all time. How would you come up with the idea of wheel if you didn't even have the notion or concept of wheel, right? Wheels are one of the most integral part of our lives and we do not even realize it. All right. If this is getting too philosophical, I should probably stick to design thinking. Coming back, since the invention of the wheel, we have really come a long way. We have built civilizations and whatnot. In life, we are always bumping up with new problems while we have the desire to solve them. It's often hard to find the right solution or even know where to start. That's where design thinking comes in. So, design thinking is the process that seeks to solve complex problems by approaching it with the user's perspective. Now, why design thinking, you may ask? What what is it that makes it different from or important, right? So, is it just another buzzword floating around, or does it actually justify the hype it has? So, is it even worth it? Is the main question here. So, well, what makes it stand out is the user's perspective quotient. Our innovations have been driven by technology in sense that they observe what current technology is the best that we have right now, and that focuses on the and disregarding the focus on the end user's perspective, wherein the end user is the person who is actually going to experience the product. So design thinking in a way aims to achieve this innovation which is driven by users perspective rather than technology. All right, so this is broadly what design thinking looks like. And so design thinking framework can be drilled into three distinct phases. These are immersion, ideation, and implementation. Now, if we zoom out a little bit, these phases can be broken down into five actionable stages that make up the entire design thinking process. The icons of which you can see on your screen. Now, can you guys guess what each of these icon might mean? Like, I would be happy if you guys, I would be happy to hear some innovative wrong answers also. Like, what do you think these icons mean in design thinking? Are you guys typing it out, or I cannot really read chats from here? Wait a second. Uh, okay, so passion. Yeah, first icon you're referring to as passion. Arun, I think. Arun says first thing is passion. All right. So what do you think is the second icon might be? Friendly, documentation, new idea, work experience, knowledge. Right. Yeah. Cool. So, okay. So it is close to some of what you guys said. So the first thing emphasizes or justifies empathy. All right. So the first thing is empathizing with the problem statement or empathizing with what the problem that that is already existing, right? So this is the design thinking 5 actionable stages shown in a cycle. So it does not necessarily mean that you need to follow it linearly. It's a cycle. Design thinking process is basically a cycle, not a linear process, is what I'm trying to say. Cool. So we'll focus on each of these individually now. And ideate, prototype. So these are empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. All right. So empathizing. So first talking about empathizing with the problem. In empathize stage, you'll get to know your target audience and paint a clear picture of who the users are, what challenges they face, and what they actually need. This can be achieved through talking to people and interviewing them, user testing, and taking surveys basically. So the bottom thing is basically talking to people and understanding how they think, act, and feel about the problem, right? So this you can achieve by the things that I said earlier, right? Interviewing them, user testing, and surveys. So Google Forms is a comfortable way to take surveys, major surveys easily, and a lot of other online applications uh, that are used nowadays. So based on what you learn, then you define your problem statement. So you need to understand how you're transitioning from the empathize stage to the detailing of the problem statement, right? So you talk to people, you gather information, and accordingly you frame a problem statement in your mind. So when you create your problem statement, focus on the user's needs and not much on the business goals, because keeping it human centered is the theme of design thinking. And this problem statement will act, so once you define your problem statement, this problem statement will act as your north star. If you start to trail off or get lost, you just have to go back to your problem statement, and that will help you refocus. With our problem statement defined, we are ready to ideate. Keep in mind, innovation is rarely born in isolation, so don't fly solo. Get up, get out of your desk, cubicle, or spaceship wherever you stay, and gather some key individuals from different spheres of technical interests. Those should be motivated by the same problem statement, and collaborate. The name of the game is quality over quantity, so think outside the box and explore new angles. All right. Next up is prototyping. Prototyping comes in all different shapes and sizes, from basic paper models to interactive mock-ups. The goal is to have something tangible that can be tested on real people. Getting a prototype into hands of real people will give you great insight on if the solution you provided is valid or if it needs more work. Based on the feedback, you can make changes or improvements before spending time and money building the real thing, right? All right. So these steps appear to be sequential, but keep in mind the design thinking process is less linear and more iterative. Like at at each stage, you will most likely discover new things that require you to go back and repeat the previous steps. Okay. So about design thinking, I'll point out some important things. So the important thing to understand here is 5 steps that I mentioned are sort of a zoomed out map of how design thinking process works. However, the exact exercises within these circles are not defined. So you need to understand that this is an important difference between design thinking and something called as design sprint, let's say. In design thinking, you have a broad map of what you're going to do over next days, weeks, or months, or years, right? But there's no rule set that says that you have to do this exercise, you have to pursue this persona, you have to do this, or and you really don't have an alternative option. Whereas in something like design sprints, it's more like a recipe you have to follow, and it is sort of like a checklist, you can say. So, re-emphasizing again on design thinking is not a recipe. It is not to do this. It is a philosophy and a mindset that multiple different exercises can be could be an options to choose from, depending on how you want to make the dish, the the final thing, right? So design thinking is essentially pretty free form, it's flexible and pretty much up to the person who is running the process, which can make it quite tricky. And but again, this is something, this is a philosophy that has gained a lot of popularity and people have endorsed it further. So this is pretty much about the design thinking process. Like, it's a broad overview. I'd like to encourage you guys to start applying design thinking right away and get started with this thinkathon.